Please leave a comment where you are watching from. It started with a cigarette. That's how my sister tells it. Midnight. Quiet. Just her outside on the back porch with a Marlboro and the cool desert air curling around her like smoke of its own. A normal night in a not-so-normal place. Arizona. Outskirts of town. Just far enough that the stars come out bold and the silence feels thicker. We weren't strangers to wild sounds, coyotes yipping in the distance, maybe the low growl of a bobcat. But that night, it wasn't like that. That night, something screamed. And it didn't sound like any animal we'd ever known. At the time, I was 17, living with my parents and my older sister, Lex. We had 2 dogs, Fancy, a tiny but ferocious mini Aussie who could kill a lizard in one bite, and Jasper, a blue heeler mix with one eye and the attitude of a bouncer. They were family. They were protectors. And they were the reason we knew something wasn't right. Lex was outside talking on the phone with our aunt. The porch light was on. Fancy and Jasper were in the little fenced enclosure we'd built for them in the backyard. Nothing high, just enough to keep them from running off into the dark. That's when the scream happened. She said it started like a person. High, shrill, sharp, like someone had just stepped barefoot on broken glass and couldn't stop the sound. Then mid-scream it changed. The pitch dropped. It warped. And what came out next wasn't human. It was something else. Coyote laughter, bubbling up out of that original scream like something pretending to laugh with a mouth that wasn't made for it. Lex froze, dropped her cigarette, backed toward the door. She slammed it shut and came inside pale as drywall. Get the dogs. Now. Lock everything. I didn't ask questions. I saw her face. That was enough. We grabbed Fancy and Jasper, bolted the doors, locked the windows. Stayed huddled in the living room, lights off, ears sharp. And that's when we heard it. Scratching. Not frantic. Not panicked. Methodical. Scritch, scritch, pause. Then again. At the back door. Jasper growled low in his chest. Fancy didn't move. She just stared at the door like she knew exactly what was on the other side. Lex looked through the peephole. No one there. But the scratching continued. We stayed awake the rest of the night. Eventually it stopped. But that wasn't the end. That was just the first knock. About a week later it happened again. Same time. Midnight. This time, Lex let the dogs out for just a minute before bed. They ran off into the dark, and within seconds, Jasper started barking. Not his usual, get off my lawn bark. This was deeper. Warning bark. Threat bark. Fancy was silent. We opened the door to call them in. Jasper bolted in immediately, skidding across the tile floor. And Fancy? She came in after him. But something was off. She didn't go to her water dish. Didn't bark or wag. She just walked to the middle of the living room and stood there. Still. Head tilted, like she was listening to something we couldn't hear. Jasper was growling at her. Tail down. Ears flat. Full body tense. Fancy didn't even look at him. She was staring at us. Not pleading. Not curious. Watching. Then we heard it. Another scratch. At the back door. Lex and I looked at each other. Because Fancy was already inside. We opened the door an inch. There she was again. The real one. The right one. Eyes bright. Tail wagging. Barking in that high, excited rhythm she always used when we came home. We let her in. And the other one? Gone. Vanished. No trace. The living room empty except for Jasper, who was shaking now. We never spoke about it again. Not until much later. But after that, Fancy was never quite the same. Sometimes, at night, she would stare at corners. Her ears would twitch to sounds we couldn't hear. And one time, just once, I saw her reflection in the sliding glass door. And it wasn't moving when she was. A few months later, I got a scratch down my back. Deep. Red. Fresh. I'd been home all night. No one had touched me. I'd slept in a hoodie. No sharp objects around. But it was there. 3 long lines. Parallel. Like claws. Jasper stayed in my room for a week after that. Refused to sleep near the doors. Fancy just watched. A year passed. We moved out of that house. Left Arizona. Lex got married. I went to school. Fancy died of old age 2 years later. Jasper a year after. But I'll never forget that night. That scream turning into laughter. That double at the door. That moment when we realized we had let the wrong one in. I told a friend once, someone deep into native lore, and they didn't even blink. Skinwalker, they said. Probably wanted your dogs. Maybe one of you. It mimics what you love to see if you'll let it in. But why scratch? I asked. Why not break in? They smiled sadly. Because it doesn't want to break in. It wants to be invited. So now I never open my door at night. Even if it sounds like someone I know. Even if it's me calling for help. Because whatever it was, it learned our names, and it still knows where we live. We used to drive that road all the time. One of those suburban shortcuts. The kind your dad swears saves 10 minutes even though you hit 2 lights and pass a weird cul-de-sac that feels like no one lives in it anymore. It was quiet. A little too quiet. No sidewalks. One side lined with tight rows of houses, windows dark, lawns too perfect. The other side? Woods. Not deep forest. Just that kind of half-forgotten land you see between housing developments. Dead trees. Overgrown fences. Dirt trails worn into the brush by kids on bikes who don't know better. I was maybe 7 or 8. Small enough to still sit in the back seat and make shapes out of clouds, but old enough to start seeing things I didn't have words for yet. That's when I saw it. The first time. We were heading down the road at dusk. My dad was driving. My brothers in the front. I was on the right side, staring out the window, half daydreaming. Then, just for a second, I saw something. It was big. Larger than any dog I'd ever seen. And I knew dogs. We had one. All our neighbors had them. But this wasn't a dog. It was crouched low, just behind a tree near the edge of the woods, but part of it, the back or the shoulder, was sticking out, lit by the last orange glow of the sun. It had skin, not fur. Pale. Too pale. The shape was hunched but long, with a back that curved upward like a horse about to rear. But the head, I couldn't see the face. Just ears. Or maybe horns. I'm still not sure. My memory tells me horse, but also dog. And neither felt right. The shape moved, twitched, like it had heard something. Like maybe it heard me. Then it vanished behind the tree. Gone. I didn't say anything. Not that night. Not for years. Because some part of me knew, even at 7, that whatever I saw, adults wouldn't believe it. And if I did speak it aloud, it might come back. Might come closer. We stopped going down that road not long after. I don't know if it was random, or if my parents felt something too. But we took the long way after that. And I didn't miss it. Not until much later. Years passed. We moved away. New town. New neighborhood. New people to pretend nothing weird had ever happened. And I almost forgot. Until one night, we were sitting by a lake, fishing and telling ghost stories. My brother's wife. Me. I wasn't planning on saying anything. I never told anyone about the thing in the woods. But something in the air that night, the fog curling low over the water, the way the wind cut quiet between words, it pulled it out of me. I told them. Described the shape. The size. The way it didn't move like it should. The way it watched. They went quiet. Then my brother's wife looked at me and said something that chilled me more than the memory itself. It could have been a skinwalker. She wasn't joking. She was serious. She told us she'd heard stories growing up about creatures that were the shapes of animals but aren't. That walk on 2 legs or 4, depending on how well they've adapted. That watch from just out of sight. That wait. Ever since that conversation, I've been remembering more. Little things. The way the backyard fence would rattle at night for no reason. The time our dog refused to go outside and pissed on the kitchen floor instead, tail down, ears flat. The way, one night, I swore I heard knocking on my 2nd-story window. And how I never opened the blinds again. Sometimes I think I dreamed the whole thing. That I imagined it. That my kid brain invented something out of wind and shadow. But I keep coming back to that shape. Too tall. Too long. Not right. And when I close my eyes, I see it again. The way it turned its head without moving its body. Like it knew how to mimic movement, but not how to be alive. I drive now. Live in a different city, far from that road. But every now and then, I'll be on a back street late at night. No lights. Just woods on one side. And I'll see a shape. Not the same. Just similar. Crouched. Still. Watching. And I speed up. Because I don't want to see the eyes. Not again. My brother asked me once, years later, if I ever figured out what I saw that night. I told him no. He nodded and said, "It's better that way." Then he looked me dead in the eye. "But if you ever see it again, don't look away. That's how it gets closer." There's a cabin in the woods. Not just any woods. Not your friendly, national park trail with a map kind of woods. I'm talking about untouched land, the kind that never fully belonged to anyone except the things buried under it. The kind where history isn't written in books. It's buried in the soil. The cabin belonged to my stepmom's side of the family. It sat on a stretch of land in the middle of nowhere, deep Alberta, near a creek that cut through the property like a scar. It was old. Log walls, hand-built decades ago. 2 rooms. No insulation. Just thick wood, spider webs, and a silence that felt a little too loud. We didn't visit often. Not because it was hard to get to, you could reach it by ATV or on foot, but because, as my stepmom always said, the place remembers bad things. I thought she meant old fights. Family arguments. I didn't know she meant death. The land was once tribal. Cree territory. The locals, even now, refuse to step foot on that property after dark. You'll hear stories whispered in shops, little warnings slipped under your coffee like sugar packets. Don't go near the creek at night. If you hear a child crying, don't answer. She's still out there, barefoot and bleeding. At first, I thought they were ghost stories. You know, the kind small towns tell to keep kids from getting into trouble. But now I think they were warnings. And we ignored them. The first night I stayed at the cabin, I was 13. It was early summer, still chilly at night, fog thick over the ground. We arrived just before sunset, kicking up dust and gravel, the trees swallowing the sky around us like teeth. My dad brought gear. My stepmom brought salt. She poured it across every window sill, muttering under her breath. I thought it was superstition. Something passed down. But now I think she knew what lived out there. The cabin door had 3 locks. Not just a deadbolt. There was also a sliding bolt across the middle and another hook lock at the bottom. Heavy. Industrial. Not the kind of thing you put in a vacation spot. And every single one stayed locked after dark. That first night, I couldn't sleep. Too cold. Too quiet. The creek was maybe 100 yards away, just past the tree line. I could hear it if I pressed my ear to the wall. Just the soft trickle of water over rock. But around 2 a.m., the sound changed. It stopped being natural. I heard footsteps. Soft. Wet. Like someone dragging their feet through the shallows. Then I heard her. A voice. High. Fragile. Not singing. Not screaming. Just whispering. Help. I'm lost. I sat up, heart thudding. Pressed my face to the window. Couldn't see anything. Just fog. Then came the knocking. 3 soft taps on the wall of the cabin. Right beneath the window. I backed away. Didn't say a word. My stepmom stood from her sleeping bag without a sound. Picked up a mirror, just a compact from her bag, and held it toward the window without looking outside. She didn't speak. Just waited. Then whispered. Go back. Another knock. Harder this time. The voice again, more desperate. Please. I don't know where I am. The mirror fogged up. Not from her. From something else. Then the knocking stopped. We didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I asked her what she saw. She didn't answer right away. Just packed her bag. When we were halfway back down the trail to the truck, she finally spoke. Her name was Elsie, she said. She died near the creek. A long time ago. What happened to her? She was murdered. Found torn up. They blamed it on animals. She looked at me dead in the eye. It wasn't animals. That night back home, I did some digging. There was no official record. But I found old mentions. Local forums. Grainy archives of newspaper clippings with half the ink faded. A girl. Age 10. Missing for 3 days. Body found in pieces. No suspect. Locals said they heard her crying in the woods for years after. Said she was still trying to come home. A few years later, I went back. Don't ask me why. Call it curiosity. Call it stupidity. Call it the arrogance of thinking time heals haunted land. It was just me and a friend this time. Mike. Big guy. Didn't believe in anything. Until that night. We were sitting by the fire pit outside, drinking beer, laughing. It was late. Past midnight. No wind. No bugs. Just the sound of the creek nearby and the crackle of fire. Then we heard the splash. Soft. Deliberate. Footsteps in the creek. We froze. Mike looked at me. Did you hear? Please. A voice. From the trees. I'm hurt. We stood. Mike grabbed the flashlight. Pointed it toward the creek. And there she was. A girl. Standing knee-deep in the water. White dress. Hair matted and dripping. Face too pale. Eyes black. Not shadows. Not makeup. Black. Pupils wide, stretching across her face like rot. She didn't blink. Just raised one hand, palm out. And smiled. Mike dropped the flashlight. Ran back to the cabin. I stood there frozen as she started walking, no gliding, toward me. Then she opened her mouth. And I swear to God, it wasn't a little girl's voice anymore. It was a man's. Low. Mocking. Let me in. I bolted. We locked the door. Listened for hours as she circled the cabin. No footsteps. Just the sound of dripping water and that voice calling out different names. Some of them were ours. Some of them weren't. In the morning she was gone. But the dirt under the window had bare footprints. Child-sized. Leading nowhere. I haven't been back since. The cabin's still in the family, technically. But no one goes anymore. Not even the locals. Especially not the locals. The ones who still say, if you walk by the creek at night and you hear a girl crying, you don't stop. You don't speak. You don't look. Because she's still out there. And the land remembers. There's a stretch of highway out near the Canadian border that people don't talk about. They use it, sure. Truckers, road trippers, people looking to shave 10 minutes off the GPS route. But they don't talk about it. Especially not what you see when the road goes straight through the forest and there's not another car in sight for hours. Because once you start seeing it, it sees you too. I was 25 the first time I drove that route alone. It was early fall, late September. The air had that crisp, sharp smell, and the sun dipped faster than I expected, swallowing the sky in shades of gray and indigo before I hit the halfway mark. I was coming out of western New York, heading east toward the border, planning to cross into Ontario for a week of hiking and self-imposed silence. A solo trip, which sounded great in theory, until I ended up alone on a two-lane highway with no signal and no other headlights for over an hour. The trees pressed in on both sides like they were leaning closer every mile. And the night didn't feel empty. It felt waiting. I was doing around 70, maybe a little more. Music off. Just the sound of my tires on the road and the occasional creak of the suspension over cracks in the pavement. Then I saw it. A flash of movement between the trees to my right. Fast. Low. Gone before I could focus on it. I brushed it off. Deer. Coyote. Trick of the eye. Then I saw it again. Closer. Same speed. It was following me. Running through the woods, parallel to the road. Not weaving. Not dodging. Just gliding between trees like it knew exactly where it was going. I slowed down. Heart thumping now. Rolled the passenger window down and listened. Nothing but wind. And then I saw it. Clearly this time. It stepped out of the tree line. Not onto the road. Just to the edge. Enough for my headlights to hit it full on. And what I saw nearly made me slam the brakes. It was tall. At least 7 feet. Pale, gangly limbs like sticks bent in the wrong places. Its skin looked like stretched parchment, thin, tight, translucent in the light. And it had a face. Or it should have had one. But where eyes should be, there were just holes. Smooth. Perfect. Deep. Its mouth was too wide. Too low on the face. Open slack, like it had forgotten how to speak. Or it was waiting to learn. I blinked once. And it was gone. I sped up. Fast. Didn't even think. Just pressed the pedal until I was hitting 90, then 100. Trees blurring. Hands shaking. And then, I saw it again. Running beside me. In the woods. Keeping up. Not sprinting, gliding. Its body didn't bounce the way it should have. Its feet didn't fully touch the ground. It looked like it was sliding just above the dirt, head level with my window. And worse, it was turned toward me. Not facing forward. Not running like an animal. Watching me. With those black, empty holes where eyes should be. I pulled the gun from the glove box. Rolled the window down. Fired 3 shots into the trees without looking. I didn't care if I hit it. I just wanted it gone. For a second, it was. Until it wasn't. A mile later, I saw it again. This time in the middle of the road. Just standing there. Facing away. I screamed, swerved, nearly flipped the car. By the time I stopped, heart hammering, it was gone again. No footprints. No crash. No sound. Just silence and trees and the dull smell of burning rubber. I kept driving. Didn't stop until I crossed the border and hit a gas station with light and people. My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I filled up. The clerk noticed. "You look like you saw a ghost." "Something like that," I said. And she went pale. "You didn't take the tree line road, did you?" I looked at her. Didn't answer. She just nodded. "That thing's been seen before," she whispered. "Always at night. Always alone drivers. It runs beside you. Watches. Picks people." "Picks?" I asked. She didn't say anything. just walked back behind the counter and refused to look at me again. I still drive. Still love the open road. But I won't take that stretch again. Not because I'm scared I'll see it, but because I'm scared I won't. Because that would mean it's already here. And I'll see it somewhere I shouldn't. In the rearview mirror, maybe. Or at the foot of my bed. Watching. With eyes it doesn't have. There are places in the world where fear hangs in the air like humidity. You don't smell it. You don't see it. But you feel it. Like something just out of view is waiting. Always just beyond the tree line, behind the door, beneath the window. This story is about one of those places. A summer camp. A window 10 feet off the ground. And something staring in. When I was 13, I spent a week at a summer camp on Weberman Lake in Alberta, Canada. Not a fun, fluffy camp. The kind with zip lines and counselors in matching t-shirts. No, this place was older. The cabins were worn down to splinters, the trails were uneven, and the stairs up to the teen camp were so steep they made us count them. All 127 of them, like a challenge or a curse. At the top was a clearing. 3 youth cabins on one side, 1 staff cabin on the other. Each cabin was on stilts, propped up over uneven terrain, so the fronts were already 6 feet off the ground. And the backs? Closer to 10. Inside, the bunks were stacked against both walls, split by a narrow aisle. It smelled like dust and lake water and old socks. The windows were small and high, closer to the top bunks than the bottom, and just like everything else, they were old. They didn't close right. The curtains didn't fit, and on the first night, something looked in. It was maybe midnight. We'd spent the evening unpacking, messing around, flashlight tag in the trees. Nothing unusual. My bunk was the lower left corner, right by the wall. Across from me was Ethan, and beside him was Jay, both good guys. We were whispering in the dark, joking about a counselor who looked like a muppet, laughing about how one of the kids had farted during grace at dinner. I had my flashlight pointed low, the beam brushing the floor, and then Ethan's face. That's when I noticed it. There was a gap in the curtain above him, not big, maybe a few inches. And something white was there. Not bright white. Not glowing. Just pale. Smooth. Watching. I paused. The beam of the flashlight caught just enough for me to see that it was a face. Too smooth. Too still. Right at the top of the window. I didn't process it at first. I just felt this snap of fear in my gut, like I'd seen a car accident about to happen and couldn't move. I didn't scream. I just froze. And before I could even think to say anything, it moved. Not away. Up. So fast it vanished into the darkness above the window frame, like it had launched itself backward or climbed up the wall. Gone. No sound. No footsteps. Just vanished. And the dread that washed over me, it was like I'd seen something I was never supposed to see. I sat up fast. Jay jolted. What's wrong? I couldn't speak at first. Just pointed to the window. Then, as I tried to explain, someone else screamed. From the back of the cabin. Another camper, Sam, was pointing at the rear window now. Same thing. White. Pale. Gone before anyone else could see. We lost our minds. 2 of us crying. 1 kid puked. A counselor ran in, thinking we'd seen a bear or a snake. But when we told him, he went quiet. Too quiet. Like he'd heard it before. He told us we were imagining things. That it was late. That we needed to settle down. But he didn't tell us we were wrong. And before he left, he checked the windows. All of them. The next night, a few of the other boys, ones who hadn't seen it, dared us to go outside. Prove it, they said. Let's go monster hunting. Against my better judgment, I agreed. There were 5 of us. Flashlights. Sweatshirts. Gravel crunching under our shoes as we walked 50, maybe 60 feet down the trail behind the cabin. Jay was holding the light when he froze. Guys, he whispered. He pointed toward the trees. There, maybe 150 feet away, was something. Tall. Thin. Walking slowly, not straight toward us, but diagonally, like it hadn't noticed us yet. It had no hair. Its skin was pale, almost reflective in the moonlight. And on its head were antlers, long branching, twisting like roots growing the wrong way. Its arms were too long, legs too bent. The whole thing moved wrong, like it was remembering how to walk. Then it stopped, tilted its head, looked right at us, and took 1 step toward us. We ran. None of us spoke. We didn't need to. Just ran until the cabin lights came into view, dove inside, locked the door. None of us slept. And in the morning, We found claw marks on the back wall of the cabin. The counselors said it was raccoons. They were wrong. The next few nights were worse. Scratching. Breathing. Once I woke up and saw something's hand pressed to the window. Long fingers, palms splayed, too high for any person. On the fourth night, the counselor left his cabin and walked the perimeter with a flashlight. When he got to our window, he stopped. We were all awake. All watching. We saw him freeze. Then look up. His face changed from confusion to terror, just like that. He backed up fast, ran back to his own cabin, and locked the door behind him. In the morning, he wouldn't speak to us. Didn't make eye contact. Just told us to stay inside that night. I think he saw the same thing I did. And I think it was closer. Years later, I tried to find records. Ask questions. Dig up local stories. All I found were whispers. Camp staff who quit after a season. Kids who never came back. One girl who went missing in the 90s and was found barefoot in the woods, eyes open, lips torn from her face like she'd smiled too wide for too long. And one phrase repeated in online posts and whispered comments. It watches from the windows. I don't know what I saw. Not exactly. The first time I saw him, I thought it was a deer. Not a normal one, though. Not the kind that freeze in headlights or leap gracefully across highways like living poetry. This thing stood on two legs. And it didn't run from my car. It ran with it. That was 2015, somewhere on the border of Ohio and Pennsylvania. I was doing one of those restless, post-breakup solo drives. 2 a.m., highway empty, rain starting to slick the pavement. I liked driving at night. Still do. It's the silence that gets me, the way the world shrinks down to what's in your headlights. Like nothing exists unless you're looking at it. I was doing 60, maybe 65, through a forested stretch that bled into farmland and then dipped back into trees. Not a single other vehicle in sight. The kind of stretch that makes you feel like you're not just driving through somewhere, you're driving through something's territory. And that's when I saw it. It was running through the woods, just inside the trees, following the road. At first, I thought it was a person, then a deer, then maybe a bear. But it was none of those things. It moved wrong. Too fast for one. Every time I sped up, it matched me, gliding between trees, ducking branches without slowing down, weaving like it knew the terrain better than gravity. Its silhouette was long, lanky. The limbs were too long, bent at odd angles. Its legs didn't seem to push off the ground, they just swung. And its head, it had antlers. Massive, gnarled things that branched like old tree limbs, scraping through the dark like they didn't even notice the trees around them. The rest of the body was pale, thin, and as I glanced at it for the fourth time, just a flash between trunks, I saw its face. And it was grinning. I slammed on the gas, jumped to 75, then 80, and for about 30 seconds, it kept pace. Right there, on two legs, antlers catching the glint of the moonlight. Then it broke off, vanished into the woods. I didn't sleep for a day and a half. I didn't tell anyone. Not at first. Because what do you say? Hey, so a deer man chased my car and smiled at me. People already think you're crazy when you say you believe in things that shouldn't exist. But when it happened again, I knew I wasn't crazy. Maine, 2017. Same time of night. Same kind of stretch, remote, forested, moonless. I was driving a rental this time. Heading north for a fishing trip I almost canceled at the last minute. I was halfway through a winding section of road when I felt it. That familiar feeling. Like I was being paced. I glanced right, and there he was. Antlers. Face. Running. He was closer this time, maybe 30 feet from the road, between two massive trees. The face was clearer now, and it wasn't just smiling. It was studying me, watching my every reaction like it was waiting for something specific. My breath caught in my throat. The car jolted as I instinctively jerked the wheel away from the tree line. He didn't chase this time, just watched. A few months later, I told a buddy of mine over beers. He didn't laugh, didn't even blink. "You saw the antler man," he said. That's when I learned it wasn't just me. Apparently, this thing's been seen before, all over the Northeast, into Canada, even out west in Montana and Colorado. People call it different things, the walker, the grinner, the skin deer. But one name kept popping up in forums, urban legends, and low-resolution YouTube confessionals. The antler man. He only shows up at night, only in the woods, only when you're alone, always running, never attacking, but never far behind. I found a post from 2013, A guy swore he saw the antler man on a night drive through upstate New York. He said it kept pace with him at 70 miles per hour, not in the road, but in the trees, sprinting between them with perfect precision, like the woods bent out of his way. The post ended with this line. I shot at it from my passenger window. 4 rounds. It didn't flinch, just turned its head and grinned wider. I felt sick reading that, because I had done the same thing, back in Ohio, 2015. Except mine didn't flinch either. And I remembered something else. He didn't blink. His eyes, if they were even eyes, were wide, round, and still. Almost like they weren't seeing me, but through me. In 2018, I saw him a 3rd time. Western New York, near Buffalo, driving toward the Canadian border again. It was the silhouette this time. No full face. Just the shape of him in the trees, this time moving ahead of my car, not beside it. Almost like he was leading. Like he wanted me to follow. Or worse, like he was going somewhere, and didn't care if I followed or not. That was somehow more terrifying, because it meant I wasn't the focus anymore. I was just in the way. I started researching more seriously after that. Talked to park rangers, truckers, hunters. Most wouldn't say anything, but a few would drop hints. There's something big in those woods. Keep your eyes on the road, son. Don't look at the tree line. You ever seen something smile before it chases? The theories online range from the usual folklore, skinwalkers, wendigos, spirits, to cryptids no one's ever categorized. But one Reddit user, who claimed to be from a nearby Mohawk nation, said something that stuck with me. He's not chasing you. He's memorizing you. He shows up once to see you, again to watch you, a 3rd time to choose you. And if you ever see him a 4th time, don't stop. Don't slow down. Don't blink. Because that's when he smiles with his whole body. That part messed me up. Because I've seen him 3 times, each one clearer than the last. And now I don't drive at night anymore. Not alone. Not near the woods. And when I do, I keep my mirrors angled inward. Because the last thing I want to see is something tall and antlered reflected in the back seat of my car. They say the antler man doesn't kill, doesn't scratch, doesn't speak. He just watches, and waits, and runs, until you run out of road. I've always believed some land just feels wrong. Not haunted, not cursed, just aware. Like the ground itself knows you're there. Like it's breathing under the dirt and waiting for your feet to get close enough. I learned this the summer I turned 13, on a hill above Walker Ranch. Our family owned a piece of property not far from it. Mostly scrub and dry trees, nothing special. My brothers and I used to camp there every summer. We weren't rich, but the land was ours, and we treated it like a private kingdom. That summer, the 3 of us, me, my older brother Tyler, and our younger brother Jordan, decided to hike to the top of the hill behind the property just before sunset. It wasn't far, maybe a 30-minute walk, steep but not dangerous. Just rocks, brush, dry grass, and quiet. We weren't scared. We should have been. It was still warm when we left, sun bleeding gold through the trees. We brought water, granola bars, a pocket knife. Nothing serious. We weren't planning on staying out long. The hike up was fine. Actually, it was perfect. We laughed, caught lizards, took dumb pictures of each other posing like survivalists with sticks and makeshift spears. We reached the top just as the sun hit the tree line, casting long shadows across the clearing. From up there, you could see everything, the stretch of our land, the glint of the old barn roof, the dark blotches of pines. It felt like we owned the world. Jordan said it first. We should stay until it's dark. See if we can spot the stars before we head back. Tyler looked at me. I shrugged. Why not? We were already up there. What could possibly go wrong? As the sun dipped lower, a fog began to rise. It came fast, a thin, creeping mist that licked along the ground like fingers. We joked at first. Spooky fog, Tyler said in a ghost voice. But the longer we stood there, the thicker it got, and the quieter the world became. I didn't notice it at first. That absence. The birds stopped singing. No wind. Even the insects were silent. Jordan frowned. Do you guys hear that? We paused. Exactly, he said. Nothing. Just the fog. And then, a snap, like a stick breaking. We all turned. The sound had come from the far end of the hilltop, near a cluster of twisted trees we'd never paid attention to before. Gnarled trunks, dark roots, too symmetrical, like they'd been planted, not grown. Another snap. Then a growl. Not loud, not deep, just wrong, low and wet, like someone breathing through mud. Tyler stood up straight. Mountain lion? I wanted to agree. I really did. But no cat I'd ever heard growled like it was trying out the sound for the first time. Another snap. Closer. Then, a third one, from behind us. We spun around. Fog curling up to our knees now. I couldn't see 10 feet ahead. But I heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. One step at a time, as if something massive was walking upright. Tyler grabbed the knife. Jordan started crying. And I held my breath. Because I could feel it. Something was watching us. Right there. In the fog. We didn't run. Not yet. It was like the fog made our legs heavy. The sounds came closer. Crunch. Step. Growl. A rhythm. A pattern. 2 steps. 1 growl. 2 steps. 1 growl. As if it was pacing us. As if it was waiting for us to move. Tyler finally snapped. Run. We didn't argue. We tore down that hill like the world was collapsing behind us. We didn't follow the trail. Didn't think. Just ran. And behind us? That sound. Footsteps. Too heavy. Too long. Like a deer walking on 2 legs. The trees blurred past. The fog chased us halfway down, curling between the trunks like it had hands and fingers. Something howled in the distance. But it didn't sound like any animal I'd ever known. It sounded amused. Like it was laughing. We reached the cabin breathless, scraped, and bleeding. Tyler locked the door behind us. Jordan wouldn't stop shaking. We didn't speak. Not until morning. We told our dad. He listened. Nodded once. And then told us something I'll never forget. You boys made it down. That's all that matters. He wouldn't let us hike back up there again. Not alone. Not ever. Eventually, the hill was fenced off. The trail closed with a no trespassing sign we never put up ourselves. And one night, the old barn caught fire. No storm. No lightning. Just gone. Sometimes I think we brought something back with us. Sometimes late at night, I hear those same 2 footsteps, 1 growl. Just outside the window. It's always in 3s. 2 steps. 1 growl. 2 steps. 1 growl. I never look. Because I think if I do, it'll know I remember. And I'll never outrun it again. It started with boredom. The summer after high school graduation hits different. You feel grown, but no one gives a damn. You're too old to care what anyone thinks, too young to know how stupid you're being. That's where we were, me, Travis, and Chris. 3 kids, half drunk on nostalgia and weed, killing time in the dead hours of the night. So when Travis said, "Let's meet at the outdoor classroom," I didn't hesitate. Even if that place always felt a little off. Let me explain the setup. Our high school, like a lot of schools trying too hard to seem progressive, had this so-called outdoor classroom. It wasn't much, just a clearing in the woods behind the baseball field. A few massive logs arranged in a circle like some druid ritual space, with gravel in the middle and half-rotted benches nearby. It was maybe 10 minutes from our houses if we cut through the woods, and it was isolated enough that nobody would bother us at 1 a.m. At least, no one human. I grabbed my backpack, tossed in a hoodie and my bong. Left the house without telling anyone. Just texted Travis, on my way. The trail was quiet. Too quiet. I remember thinking how strange it was that I couldn't hear any bugs, not even the high-pitched whine of mosquitoes or cicadas. Just my own footsteps and the occasional creak of tree limbs. By the time I got to the clearing, Travis and Chris were already there. Travis was pacing near one of the logs, muttering to himself. Chris sat cross-legged on the gravel, grinding weed like it was a religious ceremony. "What's got him riled up?" I asked. Chris looked up, wide-eyed. He saw something. What kind of something? Travis spoke before Chris could answer. "A dog," he said, voice flat. But it wasn't a dog. We laughed at first. The way you do when your buddy says something weird, and you don't want to admit the way it makes your spine itch. Then he explained. He'd been walking toward the classroom alone, ahead of us, maybe 20 minutes earlier. Said he saw something near the dumpsters behind the school. At first, it looked like a stray dog, hunched and pale, digging through trash. Then it stood, on 2 legs, looked around, then leaned back down on all 4s and casually strolled toward the woods. Toward us. "You're saying you saw a dog, man?" Chris teased. "No," Travis said, eyes locked on the woods. "I'm saying it saw me. We should have left. We should have laughed and walked out of there and gone home. But we didn't. Instead, we smoked. We passed the bong around. We relaxed. And the air got colder. You ever feel it when something's watching you? like your body knows before your brain does. That sudden tension in your gut, the prickling of your skin, that irrational fear that if you turn around, you'll see eyes just behind you. I got that feeling. Hard. Chris must have felt it too, because he stopped mid-sentence. "What the hell is that?" he whispered. We followed his gaze. To the tree line. And we saw it. Something was standing there. No more than 15 yards away. Still as death. It looked like a dog, but wrong, its limbs too long, head cocked at an unnatural angle, skin pale and almost hairless. The kind of pale that looks gray in the moonlight. And then it stood. Hind legs. Smooth motion. Like a person rising from a crouch. We didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stared. And it stared back. Then it sat down, right there in the dirt, legs too long, posture too human. And it watched. Like it was waiting for something. Travis stood first. "Let's go." But I couldn't move. I was locked in that stare. Its eyes were wrong. Not glowing. Not red. Just too big. Round and unblinking. And its mouth was too wide. Too human. Like it was mimicking an expression it didn't understand. Finally I stood. Chris was already walking backward. Travis grabbed my sleeve and pulled. And that's when it moved again. But not like walking. It glitched. 1 second it was sitting. The next it was closer. Same position. Same expression. But now only 10 feet away. No sound. No movement. Just suddenly nearer. We ran. No plan. No formation. Just raw, panicked flight into the woods. I dropped my bong. Didn't care. Branches whipped my face. Roots grabbed at my feet. I almost fell twice. And behind me, I could hear it. Breathing. Not panting. Not animal sounds. Breathing. Like a person. Fast and shallow. Excited. We made it to the edge of the woods. The trail split. Chris went left. I went right. Travis somewhere in the middle. I don't remember getting home. Just slamming the door, locking it, and collapsing on the floor. My phone buzzed. It was Chris. "Dude. Look at this." There was a photo attached. Blurry. Shaky. But clear enough. A pale shape standing in the clearing where we'd just been. Too tall. Bent backward at the spine. Watching the trail. The next morning, Travis wasn't answering texts. We figured he was sleeping it off. Until noon. Then 2 p.m. Then nightfall. His mom called us around 10 p.m. Said he wasn't home. Said his bed was still made. No one had seen him. Not since that night. He showed up 3 days later. At a gas station 15 miles away. Barefoot. Covered in scratches. No memory of where he'd been. He didn't talk much after that. Moved away within a month. His mom said he wouldn't go outside at night anymore. Wouldn't go near woods. Wouldn't even sit near windows. Chris and I tried to talk about it a few times. But every time we did, we got that feeling again, like it was listening. I moved away for college the next year. But every time I come back to town, I avoid that trail. I don't look at the tree line. And I never, ever go near the outdoor classroom. You ever walk past a place so many times, it just becomes background? You stop noticing it. Stop respecting it. That's what the creek was for us. A winding, shallow thing that ran through the woods just behind my cousin's property. We used to mess around back there all the time, building forts, skipping rocks, throwing sticks. Innocent stuff. For years, it was just part of the scenery. Until one summer, it wasn't. That was the year my cousin Max and I were both 16. Old enough to be trusted alone, but still young enough to be stupid. His family had a chunk of land near the edge of a pine forest in northern Arizona. Real pretty place, quiet, dry, but nothing weird about it. At least, that's what I thought before the screaming started. It began one July evening. We were sitting on the back porch, drinking sodas, tossing rocks at a target we'd drawn on a tree trunk with spray paint. The sun had already dipped, painting everything in that soft, golden haze. The first scream came out of nowhere. Not human. Not animal. Somewhere between. It echoed through the trees like it was bouncing off something solid, then spiraled out in a shrill note that didn't rise or fall, just held. Max stood up immediately. "The hell was that?" I shrugged, trying to look calm. "Bobcat?" He shook his head. "Bobcats don't sound like that." And deep down, I knew he was right. Because whatever it wasn't a sound meant for us. We didn't sleep much that night. Max kept getting up to look out the window. I kept pretending I was fine, but my stomach felt like it was full of hot gravel. At around 2:30 a.m., we both heard it again. This time closer. This time with footsteps. The porch boards creaked. Then something, slow, deliberate, dragged across the ground just beyond the front steps. It didn't knock, didn't howl, just walked, and breathed. The next morning, we found claw marks on the porch post. 3 deep grooves. Perfectly spaced. Too perfect. The grown-ups dismissed it. Coyote. Maybe a cougar. Max's dad even put flour on the porch the next night to catch prints. The only tracks we found the next day were ours. And something that looked like toes. Long. Thin. Bare. That's when Max got obsessed. Started setting up trail cams by the creek. Left out meat. Recorded at night on his dad's old hunting gear. I didn't love the idea, poking something we didn't understand, but I wasn't going to let him do it alone either. So we went to the creek every day. Just the 2 of us. Hoping to see it again. Hoping not to. We didn't see anything for the first week. Just weird noises. The occasional branch snapping. Water slapping in places it shouldn't. Long stretches of silence that made you realize how loud the forest usually was. Then came the dragging. Something heavy moving through the dirt. Not every night, but often enough to know it wasn't a raccoon. Or a deer. Or anything with hooves. The trail cams didn't catch much. Mostly static. Once, and only once, there was a single frame with something in it. It was blurry, but I swear it was tall. Thin. Upright. And standing in the water. Just standing. Then things started disappearing. Small at first. Rocks we'd stacked. Branches we'd tied together. Then one of the trail cams ripped off the tree. Gone. Then Max's hunting knife. Then his dog. She was a mutt, sweet, loud, terrified of frogs. One night, she followed us down the trail. The next morning, she was gone. No barking. No blood. Just the chain on the back fence, snapped clean. And claw marks in the dirt. That was the day we stopped going out at night. We still checked the creek during the day. But it felt different now. Like something was watching us in reverse. We'd look at the woods, and the woods would look back. We didn't speak much during those walks. Just listened. Because sometimes we heard things we couldn't explain. Voices. Calling our names. And always from just around the next bend. One afternoon, we found footprints in the creek bed. Not deer. Not human. They were long. Toes curling inward. Too deep to belong to someone Max's size. And he wore size 12s. They started at the bank. And ended at the middle of the creek. No return path. No splash. Just gone. A few days later, we went out again. It had rained the night before, so the ground was soft. Muddy. We figured it was a good day for tracking, maybe too good. The woods were drenched. Darker than usual. That smell of wet pine and something else. Something sweet and rotting. Like fruit that had gone bad in a sealed box. We found the trail by the rocks. A long furrow in the dirt. Like something heavy had been dragged from the trees into the water. But there were no branches. No broken limbs. Just a path. And handprints. Big ones. With fingers. Too many of them. Then the breathing started. We didn't hear it, not at first. We felt it. The kind of pressure in your ears that builds before thunder. The weight of something alive in the air. And then we heard a splash. Just behind us. We turned. Nothing. Then Max pointed. There, he whispered. Across the water. A shape. It wasn't running. Wasn't walking. It was crawling, slow and upright, dragging something behind it. And it was smiling. A wide, slack grin. No eyes. Just deep pits where they should have been. Its skin looked stretched, like a sheet pulled tight over too many bones. Its fingers were long. Moving like they were remembering how. We ran. Didn't look back. Didn't stop until we were inside the house, door locked, lights on. That night, neither of us slept. We didn't go near the windows. We didn't speak. We just listened. For breathing. It didn't come back right away. But it wasn't gone. We knew it. The woods felt different. Heavier. Possessed. Max stopped talking about it altogether. Stopped sleeping. Stopped eating right. One night, I found him standing by the back window, just staring at the tree line. He didn't blink. Didn't move. Just whispered, "It wants us to follow." I told my parents I wanted to go home early. They didn't ask why. I think they knew. Because when they came to pick me up, my dad didn't wait for me to close the trunk. He stood at the back of the car, facing the woods, one hand on his hip like he was ready to draw something. When I hugged Max goodbye, he barely looked at me. Just said, "Stay out of the water." I haven't been back to that creek since. But Max has. Or had. Because last I heard, he's gone. Packed a bag. Left one night. Never came home. No note. Just his boots left by the porch. Facing the woods. Sometimes when I walk by running water, I swear I hear it. That breathing. That drag through dirt. That low voice, not a whisper, not a growl, just waiting. People think evil comes loud. In a crash. A howl. A scream. But this? This came soft. Through the mud. Through the water. Through the trees. And it's still there. Waiting by the creek. There are knocks that you answer without thinking. Like when it's your mom's rhythm at the door, or a sibling calling you by your childhood nickname through the mail slot. We learn the sound of people. Their weight. Their tone. The way their voice bends when they say your name. That's what makes it worse. When something knocks and sounds almost right. But not quite. This story doesn't take place in the woods. It happens in a quiet, middle-of-nowhere neighborhood in Arizona. Flat land, fenced yards, scattered houses. Everyone had space. Everyone had dogs. And most of us grew up used to coyotes yipping at the edge of the property, or mountain lions skulking in the distance. We knew the sounds. The real ones. So when something started scratching at our window around 2 a.m., we didn't think, animal. We thought, someone's trying to get in. It started one night in early March. Cold enough that the air bit, but not freezing. My sister Lex and I were home alone, parents out of town, staying with relatives 2 hours away. It was late. I was in my room, headphones on, working on a digital painting. Lex was downstairs watching a movie. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Faint. Rhythmic. Like someone was dragging nails gently across glass. I pulled my headphones off. Listened. Nothing. Then I heard it again. Scratch, scratch. Tap. My window. I got up slowly, heart picking up. Lifted the edge of the curtain, just enough to peek out. Nothing. Just the porch light and the bare yard, empty except for the wind kicking up some leaves. I told myself it was the tree branches. Went back to my desk. 10 minutes later, Lex texted me from downstairs. You scratching something? No. Why? Something's at the window. That's when I knew I wasn't imagining it. I ran downstairs. She was standing in the kitchen, back against the counter, pale and rigid. The living room window, she whispered. We stood there in silence. And then we both heard it. Clear as anything. Scratch, scratch, knock. 3 taps. Then a pause. Then a voice. Lex? I don't remember moving. Only the surge of adrenaline. I grabbed the biggest kitchen knife I could find and crept toward the living room. She followed close behind, holding her phone like it could protect her. We didn't speak. Didn't need to. Because we both knew that wasn't our mom's voice. It sounded like her, same softness, same rhythm. But too flat. Too slow. Like someone was using her voice phonetically, but didn't understand the meaning behind it. Lex? Sweetie opened the door. It said it again. Too sweet. Too rehearsed. Lex covered her mouth with her hand. The voice kept going. Soft. Insistent. And then, I'm cold. We didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then came the loudest knock I've ever heard. Not pounding. Just one single deliberate knock. Like it had finally lost patience. I yanked the curtain. No one there. But in the dirt just beyond the window were bare footprints. Leading nowhere. We called the cops. They came, looked around, found nothing. Told us it was probably a prank. Maybe a neighbor being weird. Footprints, the officer said. Could have been old. Not enough to go on. Lex and I nodded like we believed him. We didn't. The next night, it happened again. Same time, 2:12 a.m. Same voice. Sweetheart, it's me. This time it was my name. Not hers. It sounded like my dad. But he was still 2 hours away. Lex and I sat in my room, door locked, lights off, listening to it knock on every window of the house. It circled us for nearly 20 minutes. Never shouting. Never growling. Just calling us like we were kids late to dinner. When it got to the back door, I made the mistake of whispering something. Just a breath. Just a name. And it stopped. Silence for a full minute. Then the doorknob jiggled. Not hard. Just a small rattle. Like it was smiling on the other side. We didn't sleep. Didn't speak. And in the morning, claw marks on the back door. 3 parallel lines. Cut deep. And footprints again. No shoes. Too long to be human. We set up a camera after that. Just an old one. Motion-sensing floodlight cam my dad had installed a year before and forgot about. We reconnected it to the app. That night we waited. And right on time. 2:12 a.m. It came back. But this time, we recorded it. The notification hit my phone. I opened the feed. And my blood went cold. The floodlight was on. The backyard fully lit. And there, standing just outside the camera's range, was a shape. Tall. Thin. Head tilted like a dog hearing a new sound. And smiling. The mouth was wide. The eyes were just dark spots. And its hands were pressed against the glass. It didn't move. Not for 5 minutes. Just stood there. Staring. Then it turned and walked away. The next day, the camera feed was corrupted. Just static. We saved what we could. And moved out of the house within the month. Here's the worst part. Before we left, I did something stupid. I set an alarm. I got up at 2:10 a.m. Went downstairs. Waited in the dark. And at 2:12, it knocked. Twice. And said, "You always liked drawing, didn't you?" That's when I knew it had been watching longer than we'd realized. Because that wasn't something anyone else knew. Not even Lex. I backed away. Didn't answer. Didn't breathe. It stood there for another 2 minutes. Then left. We never told our parents the full truth. Just that someone had been messing with the windows. That we didn't feel safe. They believed enough to help us leave. But not enough to ask more questions. I think part of them didn't want the answers. It's been years. I live in another state now. Apartment on the 3rd floor. No trees near the windows. No yards. No porches. And every night, I make sure the windows are locked. Because sometimes, I still hear it. Just beneath the hum of the fridge, or through the cracks in the walls. A voice. Familiar. Saying my name. And if I ever answer, I know it'll knock again.